a Sapphire Running Zone podcast.
Hi everyone, it's Tim from the Sapphire Running Zone, and today we are joined by Emma in South Wales, and we are doing another of our fundraisers who love running. And today Emma is going to tell us what it's like being, in her own words, a back of the pack runner, which is great because this is a perspective that we haven't really discussed in a great amount of detail before. So looking forward to this. So Emma, tell us where you work and tell us a little bit about your running journey so far.
Hi, Tim. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm so happy to be here. I never thought I'd be asked to do a running podcast. I work for Wales Air Ambulance. I've been in the charity world for about 10 years until very recently I was managing our supporter engagement team who steward a lot of our runners and community participants. Running journey-wise, started with any degree of anything resembling consistency in January 2024. Since then, I've done 3 half marathons with a variety of degree of what you might term success, and had wildly different experiences in all of them. But as you say, yes, quite proudly a slower runner and definitely a back of the packer. So
Right, I want to explore that in a little bit more detail, but talk us through your very first half marathon, how you ended up on the start line and what the whole experience was like.
So my very first half marathon was frankly almost a dreadful mistake. What happened was my very best friend bought me an entrance to a half marathon as a Christmas present. I live in South Wales, but a lot of my family are in Southampton. And she bought me an entrance to a Southampton half marathon that was in June 2024, alongside a submission to a running club, so that, in her own words, you can stop watching everyone else do it and, put your money where your mouth is and start doing it yourself. So my first half marathon, I went from couch to 5K in that January to attending the half marathon in June. It wasn't successful in the traditional meaning of the word. I had quite a debilitating panic attack about 8 kilometres in. Luckily, I was with my sister. I was on the floor, sort of watching all the other runners who were lovely and very concerned. Managed to convince the wonderful stewards. It was a run-through event, and I can't speak highly enough of the stewards that were there. They were excellent. Managed to convince them to let me continue on the condition that one of the marshals stayed with me as well for the rest of the run. Finished it took me just over 3.5 hours. In the slower running community, some of us have an acronym DFL, which is dead flipping last. And that is exactly where I ended up. I finished it dead flipping last I think I was about 35 minutes after the next last person. So I still got my medal. I think the goodie bags had all been packed up by that point, but it was a heck of an experience, and it was a huge variety of emotions from that experience as well. I felt, a lot of negative things at the time. I was really embarrassed, but I also felt the most incredible amount of positive emotions from it as well. It was a heck of an experience, and yes, that was my first one.
What caused the panic attack?
I think so. It was quite a warm day. It was June. The Southampton half that was done, they do a couple throughout the year, I think, in Southampton, and this one was a loop around Southampton Common, which isn't a massive place. So it was 6 times around the same loop, and because it was a looped course, and because I'm quite slow, I was constantly being overtaken by the same people. And it became quite demoralising. If I'm completely honest, Tim, I hadn't put enough work, and I was extremely naive about what it actually took and what it would look like. I made a tremendous amount of mistakes, including I'd got so nervous that day I didn't have breakfast. Just so many things that would rightly horrify so many of your listeners, I think, that would think, what were you doing? I made so many mistakes, and I was embarrassed by that. And I'd got in my own head, and I was with my sister, who is an excellent, objectively very, very good runner. And the tail runner had overtaken us because she thought we were a loop further ahead than we were already at that relatively sort of a third of the way through. And my sister said, I'll just go and tell her that actually we're not as far ahead as she thinks we are. And in that time between her leaving me, watching them have a chat, my brain was tremendously unkind to me. And I thought that they were coming back to tell me, look, you've got no business being here. You shouldn't have done this. You're an absolute fraud. You need to quit, on your bike. You're going home. And I got very, very upset. And I got very panicky. I don't know if you've ever had a panic attack, but when they start, you can't regulate yourself. You can't catch your breath when you're already out of breath and you're already very sweaty. It's quite, it's a really uncomfortable situation to be in at the best of times. I was on my hands and knees and then I was turned over and my sister's doing that thing that, she's pushing my legs up and I managed to regulate myself. And the tail walker or tail runner was so lovely. And I said, I know you've come back to tell me that I have to quit and I really don't want to. And she said, that's not what I was coming back to say at all. But now that this has happened, I can't really let you carry on. And I was absolutely gutted. And I said to her, I completely understand, you've got insurances and whatnot, but my sister is with me. I'll take off my number, but I've come here to complete a half marathon and that is what I'm going to do. But I get it if I can't do it officially. And they let me carry on the condition that she stayed with us, which she did. And she was absolutely excellent. And on my final lap, every marshal that we passed was packing up and joining us. So on my final lap, honestly, it felt like a lap of honour. And when I finished, my sister was trying to do that thing, that sort of Brownlee Brothers thing of push me over the line first. I think she was just being lovely. But I was like, no, I haven't gone through all of that not to finish DFL. If I'm finishing last, I'm finishing dead flipping last and I'm doing it in style. And I did. I got so many people had gone home, but the marshals that were there, I got cheered over like a celebrity. And it was, like I say, it was such an astonishing mixture of emotions because I was embarrassed and I felt physically not brilliant, but I also felt incredibly proud. I thought, wow, if a panic attack couldn't stop me and if all these people are clapping me over, it was a really powerful way to reframe a very unpleasant experience into one that actually made me think, well, there's a lot to learn from this. There's a lot of opportunities for growth. The only way is up. If in my next run I don't have a panic attack in the dirt, I'm already getting better. So yeah, it was a heck of an experience for my first run. A lot of it was self-inflicted, if I'm honest. But again, I learned a lot from it. So yeah.
I think so many people are incredibly nervous on their first run. What sort of tips have you got?
I think things that I really learnt from that were I hadn't prepared enough, and only you will know at the start line if you have or haven't. Although I saw a really great quote from a running coach that I follow on Instagram or something, and he said if you carry all of the weight of the training ones that you've missed with you to the start line, you're going to start with a very heavy weight. And I think that's a really excellent one. Eat breakfast. Do not attempt to do a half marathon on a warm day if you haven't had breakfast. And also, what I would say is if you are worried, if you've signed up to something, be it anything, a 5K, a 10K, a half, and you're worried about finishing last, there are so many worse things than finishing last. I felt like a celebrity. Honestly, I felt brilliant. And there is absolutely no shame in it at all. And I think that not being, in inverted commas, good at something is not the same as failing. And if you consider finishing last failing, which different people have a different gauge of what success and failure means, if finishing last would be a failure to you, well, failing in itself doesn't have to be embarrassing or it doesn't have to be a bad thing. It means that you've tried. And that in itself is incredibly impressive. If you've crossed a finish line at a mass participation event that you were nervous about, that is an incredible achievement and that you should be, incredibly proud of yourself. And even if you start and it doesn't go to plan and you don't manage to finish it, a DNF is a heck of a lot more impressive than a DNS. We're still out there. We're still trying, no matter how many mistakes you make on the day or you make in the run up or however slow your progress is, you're still way ahead of everyone that isn't trying at all. So be really, really proud and yeah, just try your best and be as sensible as you can.
Most people can't even think about doing a half marathon or a marathon.
Yeah.
But the fact you've got there and you've done that is unbelievable. So you should absolutely be proud. You should not be worried about times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do understand why, to a degree, with some people, like my sister's definition of success would look very different to mine because she has been running for a long time and her standards are very different to mine. So I think it's fair at times to be, she would be very disappointed in herself if she did a half marathon that took her over 2.5 hours. She would be gutted. And that's just where her barometer is. But for so many of us, like say, making it to the start line is such an achievement in itself that yeah, don't worry about your pace. Don't worry about where you finish. Don't worry about being, we're just getting better value for money in the back of the pack. We've paid stupid money for these things. Take your time. I was talking to an incredible chap that's done the same challenge that you've done, actually, haven't you, Tim? We had a guy raise money for us at Wales Ambulance called Morgan, and he became the youngest person to do 7 marathons in 7 weeks on 7 continents. And I was sat next to him at a dinner a few weeks before the last Cardiff half, and he said to me, "Emma, you're just doing an ultra pace." He was like, "Don't worry about it. You're just doing an ultra pace."
That's a good way of looking at it. What came next after Southampton then?
So I didn't do any fundraising for Southampton either. I really wanted to just see if I could do it. And I've been in charity for a long time. And so I thought, okay, let's do one for charity then. And you've had a lot of excellent and incredible charity workers on here before talking about the power of a story. So I harnessed what had happened, and I told everyone in my network, despite the fact that on my first attempt, I had a panic attack and I finished DFL. I'm deterred, I'm doing it again, but this time I'm doing it for Wales Air Ambulance. And this is why, because this is what it means. And I set myself a target, I think, of 250, and I raised about £900, which I was really, really proud of. Because I wasn't done with making mistakes, I made a lot more mistakes on the day. I did eat at least, but I had quite a bad chest infection, and I probably should have had the confidence in myself and in the people that had very kindly sponsored me to say, I am not well enough to do this right now. It doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. It means I can't do it on this date. And I didn't. I felt sort of backed into a corner. I felt like, well, I've told all these people I'm doing this now, so I should. So I did Cardiff half with a chest infection. Still I wouldn't call it a panic attack. My husband stayed with me this time. He would call it a panic attack. I had an event about 10 miles in, and it took me about 3 hours, 10 minutes to do the Cardiff half that time. And then after that one, I did the Cardiff half last year for a different charity very close to my heart, Hope Rescue, raised about £600 that time, and finished that one in just under 3 hours, because despite everything I've said about finish lines, not finish times, which I do wholeheartedly believe, I had also got it into my head that, come on now, you've been doing this nearly 2 years. I should get it under 3 hours. And of course, on the day, as they always do, things went slightly awry. I poured some water over my head in an effort to look like, a super impressive long distance runner. And what I actually did was pour it into the pocket of my of my running vest, which my phone was in. So my perfectly curated playlist. And Tim, this was the best playlist you've ever heard in your life. It was such a good playlist. And obviously it completely conked out. So my husband's with me and he says, "Oh, here, take one of my ears, one of my earpods." And his playlist was dreadful. And I'm plodding along. And honestly, at one point, he genuinely had the theme. Is it the theme to Starsky and Hutch? The one that goes, "You've got a long way to go and a short time to get there." I felt victimized. I was like, what the heck is this? Yeah, but I finished it in 2:57, which I was absolutely thrilled with at the third attempt of finishing it under 3 hours. And again, my sister for her, that would be dreadful, but she'd come and done the Cardiff half that time, and she waited for me at the finish line. She burst into tears when I said, yeah, I did it in 2:57. She was so pleased for me. And that's what it's about. People will, if you find your tribe, people are going to cheer you no matter how long it takes you. And that's the important thing. And again, it feels great. Running doesn't have to exclusively be for people that are fast at it. It can be for any of us if we want it to be.
So let's talk a little bit about the fundraising then. You work in the fundraising world, so you've been surrounded by people doing events for a long time. How did you go about fundraising the first time at the Cardiff Half?
So the first time, as I say, and as any fundraiser will tell you really one of the most important things around fundraising is your story. And I think I listened to your episode the other week with Adam Dixon, and he was saying how relentlessly he would share and share and share and share. And I think that's where you can really harness social media as a power for good. So I told everyone, look, this isn't my first half, but this is what happened on my first half a few months ago. How ridiculous that I'm trying to do it again. And I think a lot of people related to that and thought they know that for me, that's a real challenge. I think once you've done a couple of the same sort of events, I probably wouldn't be able to fundraise successfully for a half marathon again unless I did a lot of the supplementary fundraising, like the quizzes, the bake sales, things like that, because people know now that come hell or high water, I am capable of finishing one. But then when it was a big story and when people saw how incredibly challenging that was for me, and I would share it after every few training updates, or I would share it, along with the story. That there are so many fantastic charities, sadly all desperately in need across the country, and Wales Air Ambulance is no exception. We've got some incredibly powerful stories to share, and it's not just about the people that we go to and save, because we only attend about 1% of any 999 calls, because we really only go to the life and limb threatening stuff. If Wales Air Ambulance are there, you're likely having the worst day of your life. And the nature of what we attend means that it's not always survivable, but people know that if we're there, they've been given every possible chance. We've got an incredible bereavement service that I'll talk about a little bit later, because one of our patient liaison nurses did a 10K for us last year as well that was phenomenally successful for a variety of reasons. And so, yeah, sharing your story, be vulnerable if you are comfortable being vulnerable. If you're finding it difficult, tell people you're finding it difficult. Tell them that, because truly every time I saw that tick up, it was on Just Giving, so you get those emails, don't you? Every time I saw it tick up, it was such a massive boost to morale. So not only are you helping a charity, but if you're sponsoring someone, you're helping that person as well. And don't be afraid to say that. I think that that's really important. One of my favorite fundraisers that I've seen I think she was doing a marathon. It might have even been Southampton, which has one of the highest DNF rates in the country, not because it's a 12 loop of the flipping common, but because it is a double leap. So you do the half and then you carry on. And there's a horrible bridge in Southampton, Itchen Bridge, which is a heck of a gradient. And so to have to do that twice, anyway, it's a horrible thing. Anyway, she did a sponsorship of Help Me Build the worst ever running playlist. And anyone that sponsored a certain amount, she would add their song. She ended up with like Everybody Hurts, REM, Long and Winding Road, Beatles, Sound of Silence, just the worst.
It's a
And I would
great
never do
idea.
that as a beginner or a slow runner. Oh, brilliant idea, because it was different and it gave a really funny and great spin on it. And I think if you're, in inverted commas again, a good runner, you probably have to do something like that to get the sponsorship in, because people know it's not a challenge. Now it's a challenge, because how on earth can you complete a marathon listening to Everybody Hurts? So I thought that was genius. I thought that was a great idea.
That really is. Yeah, I've not heard of that before. That's a fantastic idea. Really good. So you basically set up a page, sent the link out to friends and family, work colleagues, etc., and just kept sharing and sharing and pushing the link.
Just was pretty. I didn't do any kind of supplementary fundraising for either of the halves. For the second one, the one I did last year, I wasn't going to fundraise for, but I'm a volunteer. Used to work for Hope Rescue, which is a dog rescue charity in South Wales, and I knew they were going through a heck of a time. So I thought, okay, well, this is still tough enough actually for this to be impressive, in a way that it is still a big challenge. I had an operation last May, so I was recovering from that, and I wasn't quite starting from beginning again, but I'd done that super annoying thing where I had just got into a routine and then I just stopped over winter. I just hibernated. So it, like I said, wasn't quite starting from the beginning again, but it wasn't too far off. And again, I was just sharing personal stories, why it's important to me, stories of the dogs that the charity is supporting, and stories of, look, this is still really hard. One of the most kind of surges that I got was I shared my wonderful playlist that I never got to fully listen to. And I said, look how long it is. This is because I'd made it to be 3.5 hours just in case. And at 3 hours on the dot, Always Look on the Bright Side of Life was going to come on from Monty Python, because I'd know I hadn't made my 3 hour dream, but I'd know I was still, I was still going. But, I said, look how long this playlist is. This is how long I'm going to be out there. This is ridiculous for someone to be traversing anything for this period of time. And I think it made people go, God, that is a lot of songs. That is a long time. So, being able to visualize it in that way. Hayley, our patient liaison nurse that I mentioned earlier, who did a 10K last year, she was also an absolute beginner. She's done it from couch to 5K. And she did it for Wales Air Ambulance. But she is phenomenal. She shares every training one. And she has a tough job. So she's talking to survivors of extremely traumatic incidents or bereaved relatives, and helping them come to terms with what happened. Incredibly difficult job. And is then going out for a run that she finds extremely challenging. She shared literally every step of her journey. So for a 10K, I can't remember how much. I mean, it was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. It was what a lot of people would struggle to raise for a half or a full marathon, because people would look at what she was doing after a day at work, after a hugely emotional day at work. And she is like me. She is, a proud back of the packer. She is a slow runner, but she's out there, she's doing it, and she's training for a half now, and she's going to absolutely smash it. Whether she comes dead last or whether she comes middle, or, she is going to finish, because it's important to her and people know that. So she's going to raise a lot of money again, I think.
That's fantastic. How did you find the two different causes? Was it a challenge? Was it more of a challenge running for Hope Rescue?
People that know me know that I am a crazy dog mum. I've got 2 dogs. I love dogs. We foster for Hope sometimes. My husband's a trustee there. So people that know me know that it's an important cause to me. But again, with so many worthy causes out there, to some it is, why would I care about this when I could care about X? Which is understandable. We've all got things that we prefer to support. So I think in a sense it was slightly harder because it was my second time fundraising for the same event, and you're always going to have a tail off if you're not doing anything, super different. It's going to be harder. But I didn't find it any harder sharing that as a reason for running, because to me, they're 2 of my favourite charities. So the 2 causes are equally important. And if you are a dog lover, then, that's going to resonate with you. And likewise, if you're not, that's fair enough. There'll be plenty of other crazy runners doing things for other people to support. So yeah, it's an interesting question though. But yeah, I didn't find it too different in terms of the app, because I have a similar passion for both of them.
Well, you've done incredibly well so far. So the big question, of course, is what's next?
Well, in immediate future, not fundraising for it, but I booked an event for April because I am quite naturally lazy, and I found if I don't book an event in, I will just tail off, and I want to continue. I'm not running. I love the fundraising aspect of it, but that's not my only reason for running. You've had a lot of wonderful people in here talk about its wonderful effects on mental health. I want to keep going, and I want to get to a point where it is relatively comfortable for me to do so. So I thought, well, if I book something in that sort of early spring time, there'll be something to keep me going over winter, because, 72% of women exercise substantially less or stop completely over winter, because we do have a separate set of concerns to men. It is tougher for women to go out on nights like this. So I'm doing Cathedral to Castle in April, which is 10 miles. So is a really good excuse to keep me going, to keep me getting out there and keep up my training runs. And then I have a ballot place in Cardiff Half. So I'm probably not going to fundraise for that. I am doing it hopefully with a lovely colleague who has signed up and who is saying to me all the things I was saying years ago to my sister and to my husband of, oh no, I'll be too slow for you. You don't want to stay with me. And I'm like, we're going for a good time, not a fast time. Don't you worry. We'll be fine. And that's really lovely that, in terms of progression, that's really lovely that I feel like I can be there for someone else who is worried about an event, and I can go, no, it absolutely doesn't matter how long it takes us, because the likelihood is, statistically, we're unlikely to be last. And if we are, I've been asked before. It doesn't matter. No one else cares. It does not matter. Yes, that's what's next. If you're listening to this and you are a slower runner, there are so many of us out there. Find us. We're waiting for you. But, you'll find a whole corner on Instagram or Facebook or whatever that will cheer you on. I follow Bryony Gordon. She does so much for mental health, and she's a size 18. She runs marathons in her bra and pants. She does not give a hoot, and it takes her a while, but she flipping does it. I mean, how incredible is that? If you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, it's not for me, it is for you. If you've got trainers, that's all you need. Trainers, a playlist, it is for you. Come and join us, because we're not all fast and we'd love to see you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and it's been great chatting to you, and you've given us a really refreshing perspective on another side of running, which is so important, and it's massively important that people understand that it's not all about time, it's about the experience, and it's about achieving goals. Really appreciate your time, Emma.
Such a pleasure, Tim. Thank you so much for inviting me. Honestly, that was so unexpected. And it's been really lovely. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this Sapphire Running Zone podcast. Keep checking back, as we have lots more podcasts coming soon.